Good morning. Welcome to the Kingsport News Hour for the 28th day of the sixth month by the heavenly calendar in the 16th year of Chungi. Tim Elder sitting in for the second king of Chunuguk. And let's go see what is happening around the kingdom. And right now in Chongpyeong, Tennessee, we have 70 degrees, mostly cloudy skies this morning. Fog will lift this morning, otherwise humid with intervals of clouds and sunshine with a thunderstorm in spots this afternoon, high of 84. Tonight, clear to partly cloudy, humid, low of 66. Father's hometown of Cheongju in North Gyeongan province in what is today North Korea. It is currently 75 degrees and mostly cloudy. And tonight, cloudy and humid with a little rain, getting down to 72. And then tomorrow, 84 for a high, occasional morning rain. And a thunderstorm, otherwise mostly cloudy and very humid. At the Cheonryung Palace in Pennsylvania, currently mostly sunny and 53 degrees. Less humid today with the sunshine and some clouds. A nice day for outdoor activities, 79 degrees for a high. Tonight, clear to partly cloudy, low of 54. Some good sleeping weather there. And at the Liberty Rock RV Park and Campground in Limestone County, Texas, partly cloudy and 71. Plenty of sunshine today, high of 96. Tonight, partly cloudy and humid, low of 74. At the Suncheon Palace in South Korea, currently 82 and sunny. 72 for a low tonight, mainly clear and humid. Tomorrow, very hot, sun and clouds, high of 97. And at the Gunma Palaces in Japan, 86 and cloudy right now, warm and very humid with clearing tonight, 76 tomorrow. Again, high of 97. So tying there with the Suncheon Palace, mainly cloudy, hot and humid, and watch for a strong afternoon thunderstorm. At the, in Ilan, Taiwan, currently 85 degrees and cloudy. A shower in spots this evening, otherwise mostly cloudy, getting down to 76. Tomorrow, only 90 degrees. So Taiwan does not get the prize today. And here, right, rain, some heavy and thunderstorms to affect the area from late Thursday night into Friday morning. Okay, it looks like I can see on the radar screen here that the radar map, thunderstorms are approaching that island of Taiwan. Okay, let's go to Father's Word. And we are in the book on the restoration of the true God's homeland. I mentioned one time that actually, I felt a little bit strange when I first saw Father use the term Cham Haranim, or true God. I mean, what kind of God is there, right? But actually, I saw the phrase true God in the Bible. I think it's in Acts. I believe it is in Acts, where, who was it? Either Paul or Peter, one or the other, is contrasting the true God to the false gods of the heathens, of the Greeks and Romans and so forth. All right, let's see here. Okay, here we're talking about Tongban Kyokpa. Breaking through on a neighborhood level is how we translate that, and breaking through in terms of witnessing. In other words, Tongban Kyokpa refers to witnessing to the community around us, our neighbors and so forth. Or it could be, strictly speaking, that's it, but it can also be, people at work or stuff like that. Okay. So for the sake of Tongban Kyokpa, in other words, I'm just going to use the Korean, right? Because I've already defined it for you in English. So for the sake of Tongban Kyokpa, we must go to the families. And beginning with Adam and Eve, everything was lost in the families. And that became the cause for everything to be lost in the nation and in the world. So now our Father has paid indemnity on the worldwide level, and now I'm embracing all the families of Korea. I guess looks like he's speaking to a Korean audience here. Embracing all the families of Korea, and so that they can change direction. So that they can change direction. In other words, change direction from Satan's direction to God's direction. Or I guess left would be Satan's direction, right would be God's direction. So okay, gotta keep that straight. And for that reason, Juche thought is necessary. You may say, what? Father says Juche thought is necessary, but wait. It's not that Juche thought. So I've declared the thought of true parents, true teachers, and true owners. You see, that is Father's Juche theology, Juche thought. Juche thought, of course, is the governing thought of North Korea, and it was established by Kim Il Sung, and it's often translated into English as self-reliance or something like that. And it's the same word, Juche. Juche is, of course, which we translate as Juche. We generally translate as subject partner, right? Subject partner is Juche. Object partner is Taesang. Juche wa Taesang. Subject partner and object partner. And Father says, okay, there are three kinds. Mainly there are three kinds of subject partners. You have your true parents, you have your true teachers, parents, teachers, and what's the third one? Owners. So those are the three main types of subject partners. And so Father said, this is the Juche thought of the principle. And that is what the Father has declared. Okay, all right. Okay, this was July 1st, 1990. Okay. Praise God for giving us his word. Precious word this morning. Okay. All right, let's see what's going on. I mentioned this, I think, a couple of times now, about South Korea handing out money to their citizens. And I want to go over it again today for a couple of reasons. First of all, I have a lot more detail about this. And second of all, I was a little bit wrong in what I said before. But thirdly, probably most importantly, this gives us some idea of how CBDC is going to work, central bank digital currency. And as I keep saying, central bank digital currency is financial tyranny. And I'm not saying that this is what is happening in South Korea right now, but this is how tyranny comes into being. It comes into being, in the form of something that everybody likes and so forth. But anyway, so the government is handing out some money, not a lot of money. It's about $100 per person. And it turns out I thought it was only for residents of Seoul, but no, it's for everybody. But you have to have been living in Korea as of June 18th. So if someone was visiting Japan or something, maybe they went to Tokyo Disneyland on June 18th. I don't know. They may not get this money, but anyway. But anyway, that's the rule, and I don't know exactly how they're enforcing that. I guess they're looking at passports anyway. But as I said, my wife and I don't qualify for this anyway, so that's why I've been a little bit lax in finding out the actual details of this. But today, I see this article in the Korea Times where the government is cracking down on the resale of cash handouts. Resale of cash handouts? That sounds like a strange headline, isn't it? So let's find out what's going on. Okay, shortly after the first round application. So you have to apply for this. You have to apply for it and you have to be approved for it. Well, the government's voucher-based cash handouts began nationwide Monday. Multiple cases of the benefits being resold and purchased at discount prices on secondhand online marketplaces have been reported, government officials said Tuesday. Korea is interesting. There's always been a very active, I think they used to call it a curb market, C-U-R-B, curb market, which is kind of a fancy name for a financial black market. Or not black market, it's not illegal in any way, but kind of an informal market, I guess you could say. Anyway, so Koreans are very, very used to that. And because Koreans have been under sometimes foreign governments, sometimes their own government has been authoritarian, they're very used to and very adept at finding workarounds for regulations they don't like. And I think this is kind of one of those situations. But anyway, multiple cases of benefits being resold and purchased at discount prices, all right? This raises concerns that the original purpose of the program to stimulate domestic consumption and revitalize local economies may be significantly undermined, promoting officials and online resale platforms to tighten oversight. So the government is handing out, and it's not a lot of money. Gives it the amount down here. It's about $108. It's 150,000 won, which at current exchange rate is equivalent to $108, about that much. It's not a whole lot of money. It's a little bit, but not really. I don't think it's enough to really make a difference when people are receiving it. But I suppose for the demographic that's being targeted, if it's all funneled into that, then it's a demographic, then I suppose it'll make a difference. And says down here that the money has to be spent, first of all, in your own local area, where you're, and it has to be at your own registered address. All right, and we all have a registered address here. I mean, people don't necessarily live at their registered address. All right, this is another situation where people are getting around regulations they don't like. I live at my registered address, but I have no other address to live at. But sometimes people will move, and officially you're supposed to tell the government every time you move, but not everybody does. And so people might get a coupon that they're supposed to spend in Seoul because their registered address is in Seoul. But now they're living in Incheon, another city, okay? And they'll say, listen, I don't have time to go to Seoul just to spend $100. Come on. I want the cash. I want the cash instead. So they go online and they're selling these vouchers at a discount. Okay, so you can get so basically you can get $100 for $90. You can purchase a $100 voucher, $108 voucher for something like $90 maybe, depending on, there's probably an auction situation going on here. And so the government is trying to crack down on that. But also, the money has to be spent at stores that have annual sales, where was it down here, of less than about $2 million a year. They say 30 billion, or is it 20 million? No, 3 billion won. Okay, 3 billion won. So that's roughly, in today's exchange rate, that's roughly $2 million, a little more than $2 million. So this excludes large supermarkets, department stores, and entertainment establishments. But so here again, this is similar to what a CBDC will be, because you're restricted on where you can spend it, both in terms of geographical location and in the types of stores or other establishments where you're allowed to spend it. You cannot spend it at a large department store. You cannot use it to take your kids to some theme park somewhere, especially if they have annual sales of more than $2 million, which theme parks probably do. So you have to spend it at some, mom and pop store somewhere. And so some people are saying, I don't want to bother with this, so I'm just going to take the cash. But the government is trying to crack down on it now, saying that if you do that, according to the ministry, if the vouchers are converted into cash, the full or partial amount must be refunded. They're going to take it back. Additional sanctions may include fines and restrictions on receiving future subsidies. Shame on you, right? Shame on you. Sellers who unlawfully profit from reselling the coupons will also face penalties, but they're selling them at a loss, so I don't know why they're profiting. Posting false listings or demanding more than the coupon's value, who's going to pay more than the coupon's value, can result in up to 3 years of imprisonment or fine. Who's going to pay more than the coupon's value? I don't understand that. Now, when I lived in Washington, D.C., I commuted into Washington on the metro, the subway, and at that time, I noticed that when I went there more recently it's changed, but at that time, you would go to a metro station and you would put your money into the ticket machine, and you would get a paper card about this size. You can use that. For example, if you put in $20, you could use it for $20 worth of rides. And I used to go on eBay and buy my tickets at a discount. Usually I would get about 30 or 40% discount. The reason was that the Metro was handing these out to Washington, D.C. government employees as part of their compensation, as part of their pay. And but they were trying to encourage their employees to use the Metro, right? But human behavior is so interesting, isn't it? They say, no, I'm going to use my car. And so I'm going to go on eBay and I'm going to sell this to some guy. And so, yeah, and that was me. I would go online and I would purchase these tickets at about a 30 or 40% discount. I did get ripped off once. I sent somebody my money and they didn't send me the ticket. I filed a complaint with Metro, and it actually took them a few years to get my money back, but they did. They went to get my money back, and the bank account where my check was or my money was deposited. The guy, I sent it to the guy, and he deposited it in his bank account. And that bank account only had a little bit of money in it, and so I only got a partial refund at first. But then years later, eBay refunded the rest of my money. So eventually I got it. But still, even after I was ripped off that one time, I still came out ahead because I'd been getting such a good discount. So this sounds like a similar kind of situation. But it's the government. It's the government doing it with handing out money like this, and they're targeting a certain demographic. And I don't know if there's a expiration date. It sounds like there might be an expiration date, but I have not seen the vouchers myself. I have not received a voucher myself, so I don't know. But this is how CBDC is going to work. All right, you're going to be restricted in how, where, when perhaps you can use that money. And the government's going to justify it by saying, listen, we need to support this particular demographic. And in this case, the Korean government is saying, we need to support mom and pop businesses that have less than $2 million of annual sales. And so this is how we're going to do it. We are a leftist, communist government. Korea now has a leftist president. We have okay, they will not say they're communist, but they might say they're socialist. We're a socialist government, and so we believe in redistribution of wealth, and so this is how we're going to do it. Yeah, And there may be future situations, apparently there are going to be future situations where this is going to happen again. Now, certain experts, and it doesn't take an expert, but look at this. Lee is the name of the president. Prepaid vouchers to spur consumption may fuel inflation. Well, yeah, I mean, come on. Anytime you hand out money, you're going to be fueling inflation, aren't you? This is kind of duh situation. Inflation comes about whenever the money supply grows at a faster pace than the total amount of goods and services. And right now, they're giving everybody $100, and so they're increasing the money supply like this, and um, of course, it's going to cause inflation, which is what? It's a stealth tax on everybody, especially the middle class, and also, mom and pop stores that are trying to save. So on the one hand, they hand out vouchers to help the mom and pop stores. On the other hand, by doing that, they cause inflation, which is going to hurt the mom and pop stores. But that's socialist virtue signaling for you. So anyway, let's see. The Lee Jae-myung administration's decision to distribute prepaid vouchers to all citizens is expected to serve as a catalyst for boosting consumption at a time when sluggish domestic demand has been a major drag on Korea's economic growth, experts said Friday. And this is last Friday. However, some warned that the impact may be short-lived and argued that the measure is not a fundamental solution for revitalizing the economy. Concerns were also raised over potential side effects such as upward pressure on inflation. But hey, it's going to improve the socialist president's poll numbers, all right? So just be quiet and do as you're told. The government approved a 30.5 trillion won, about $22 billion supplementary budget plan during a cabinet meeting Thursday. As a part of the plan, it allocated 13.2 million to distribute prepaid vouchers ranging from 150,000 won to 500,000 won per person in a bid to breathe life into the sluggish domestic economy. So I don't know what this 5,000 won is, 500,000 won is. Maybe that's so that'd be about what, 300, a little more than $300, $320, $30, something like that. So maybe that's a future, something coming in the future. This marks the second supplementary budget of the year and the first to be drawn up since Lee took office of June 4th. Professor Kim Dae-jong of this university's School of Business said the prepaid voucher program is likely to have a significant impact as domestic demand remains severely depressed and the country's GDP growth is forecast to slow to around 0.8% this year. And so, and this is the guy right here. That's the president right there. He looks like a socialist, doesn't he? And so down here, all the way at the second to the last paragraph, a researcher at the Bank of Korea's Economic Research Institute cautioned that the policy could trigger adverse effects such as rising inflation. Korea Times knows where its benefits are coming from, right? No one's going to go against the government. Oh, I wasn't sharing that with you. Okay. But anyway, so right there at the second to the last paragraph, they mentioned that someone in the Bank of Korea has come up with this crazy idea that this may cause inflation. Of course, it's going to cause inflation. That's okay. That's okay. That's okay. They can just. So what is this going to do then? Especially now that the U.S. has signed this or has put into law this these regulatory framework for stablecoins. If people know inflation is coming, they're going to just go to their local Korean exchange, a crypto exchange, and put their money into dollar-backed stable coins and save their money that way instead of saving it in the Korean currency. Yeah, so that's why Korea wants to issue its own stable coin, won-back stable coin, because they think that this will encourage people to save in Korean won-back stable coin. I'm not sure I understand that. People are going to look for the instrument that is going to preserve their purchasing power the best. And of course, dollar-backed stable coins are not perfect in that sense. They are also being devalued at the same rate as the US dollar. So if the US dollar is going down by, well, official figure 3 or 4% a year, of course, it's actually more than that. And actually the dollar-backed stablecoin is going to be going down by the same amount. Anyway, so right now though, we see that we are going through a kind of a financial revolution. And so we need to understand what is happening. I just wanted to introduce this term today, financial repression. And I think this is something that I don't have it on any stories today, but it does come up from time to time. So I think we need to understand what is meant by financial repression. Financial repression refers to government policies that channel funds from the private sector to the government, often resulting in low interest rates for borrowers and negative real returns for savers. In other words, the real return, of course, is the difference between the inflation rate and the bank rate that you are getting. For example, if you are getting, let's say you're getting a 1% rate on your savings account, but inflation is 4%, then that's a negative real return, right? You have basically a minus 3%. Your money sitting in the savings account is losing purchasing power at the rate of 3% per year. So here, financial repression is a term that describes a set of policies implemented by governments to reduce their debt burdens by keeping interest rates artificially low. This often involves measures such as, so reducing their debt burdens. Can you think of a government that needs to reduce its debt burden? Yes, we all know one that has $37 trillion of debt, right? Interest rate caps. Governments may impose limits on interest rates for savings and loans, which can lead to savers earning returns below the rate of inflation, right? Control of financial institutions. The government may own or heavily regulate domestic banks, limiting competition and ensuring that a significant portion of savings is directed towards government debt. In other words, you put your money in the bank, and the government, the bank wants to loan that money to someone, right? So who are they going to loan it to? Are they going to loan it to someone who wants to build a factory, someone who wants to start a business? Or are they going to loan it to the government in the form of purchasing treasury bonds? So the government can say, listen, for every $100 you get, we're going to require that you use that money to purchase maybe $50 or $60 or $70 or $80 worth of government debt. Okay, so that's also financial repression. Of course, the bank is actually losing money on that. They could have made more. They could have made a profit on a loan to a factory worker, but now they're going to have to purchase the government debt, and the government debt is being the interest rate of the government debt is suppressed, so they're not making very much money on that government debt. High reserve requirements. Bank may be required to hold a large percentage of their deposits as reserves, reducing the amount available for lending to the private sector. And capital controls. Restrictions on the movement of capital across borders can prevent capital flight and ensure that domestic savings are used to finance government debt. So, for example, the Trump administration, did they actually do that? The 3.5% tax on non-U.S. citizens sending money over outside the United States, for example, back to their home countries. Did they actually go through with that? I think they did, didn't they? So that's a type of capital control. Also, there was an idea, I don't think this was actually included in this recent bill, but there was an idea within the Trump administration to require foreigners who own U.S. assets to pay a 3.5% or pay tax, maybe 3% tax or something like that a year. So, in other words, discouraging foreigners from owning U.S. assets. So that's also capital controls, because then that discourages capital from coming into the country. The concept of financial repression was introduced by this guy in 1973 to describe policies that hindered economic growth in emerging markets. However, it has been applied more broadly, especially in developed economies following the 2008 financial crisis. For example, after World War II, many countries, including the United States, used financial repression to manage high level of public debt by keeping interest rates low, which helped reduce the debt to GDP ratio over time. So kept interest rates low so that the government could refinance its debt at a lower rate. And so over time, that reduced the debt to GDP ratio. And while financial repression can help governments manage their debt, it often comes as a cost to savers and the overall economy. Yeah, so the savers are losing out. They're losing purchasing power. They may think, oh, look, I'm getting a whole percentage point. I'm getting 1%. Yeah, that's great. But inflation is higher than that 1%. So they're losing out. They're losing their purchasing power to a certain extent. So keeping your money in the bank is generally not a good idea under these conditions. Savers may find their returns eroded by inflation, effectively acting as a stealth tax on their savings. Yes, stealth tax. And politicians hate to raise taxes because it gets them voted out of office. But if it's a stealth tax, no one really notices it, especially if you're not teaching about money in high school, in the public schools, right? Of course, you're not going to teach your kids about money in schools. They might figure out what's going on. All right. Additionally, by limiting the returns on savings, financial repression can dampen consumer spending and investment, potentially stifling economic growth in the long run. In summary, financial repression is a complex economic strategy that allows governments to manage debt, but can have significant implications for savers, and the broader economy. So I bring this up because, well, this is where we're going. This is where we're going to some extent. And President Trump keeps pressuring the Fed to lower the interest rates. And I don't think he's intentionally pursuing a financial repression strategy. His idea is that inflation is not coming anytime soon, so the Fed can lower the interest rates without worrying about inflation, and then this will allow banks to lend more money, and that will stimulate the U.S. economy and will grow. And when we grow, we will be reducing the debt to GDP ratio, and then that's how we can grow out of this $37 trillion. I think that's President Trump's basic idea. However, as this explanation said, artificially low interest rates is one of the characteristics of financial repression. So we'll see what happens as we go along here. Okay. All right, let's see. Shall we play some make-believe? Where was that? Oh, yeah, here we go. We're going to play some make-believe, all right? Leftists like to sort of live in their own sort of bubble of their own fantasy bubble. And here, this is an example, and this is actually on the MSN site, and they're calling it an opinion piece. I guess they were too embarrassed to actually write a story on it. But there's a group that's trying to organize, it's basically a general strike in the United States, trying to freeze up the American economy, as a way of protesting President Trump and also as a way of protesting the existence of billionaires in America. It's a completely, I don't know. And these people, no one is illegal on stolen land, it says here. Getting paid, I don't know, how much do they get paid a day? Anyway, yeah. This was the No Kings protest on the 8th day of protests across Los Angeles, California on June 14th. Okay. Most people use their allotted sick time for an unexpected illness. And so one group rising in membership, rising in membership. Yes, they went from 1 to 2. Okay, his mom joined. He convinced his mom to join. So the rising in membership plans to use their sick time for precisely that, taking a page out of organized labor's handbook and using their collective action to expose and potentially even directly impact what they view as systemic injustices against the working class of the United States. Ah, yes, we see the phrase working class. What does that tell you? Marx, Lenin, they are standing up in the split world and applauding this. Although I don't know, I think they may have been blessed and but I don't know. But anyway, working class. Okay, anytime you see the phrase working class, you're dealing with a bunch of commies. All right, because first of all, it's just the word class shows you that this person believes in struggle among classes. And working class, as if I work. Do you work? I work. We all work, right? We're all working. Come on. We're all working. Working class. So who's a member of the working class? Well, anybody who agrees with these guys. If you disagree with them, you're part of the bourgeoisie. Okay. Are we clear on that? Okay. Known as the People's Sick Day. Again, here we go. People's again. As I pointed out, I think in the last couple of days, anytime you see the word peoples, you're dealing with commies. What is North Korea's official name? Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Yes. So People's Sick Day, not Citizens Sick Day, People's Sick Day. And who are the people? Those who agree with the organizers of this event. Anybody else is, of course, enemy of the people. Known as the People's Sick Day, the online movement aims to address a laundry list of social and political issues by withholding one of the average American's only powers outside of a voting booth, their labor. They're withholding their labor and buying power. Yes, I guess we're going to fast for a day. We're not going to buy lunch for today. In a post addressing their planned walkout, they slammed the 902 billionaires living in the United States. My goodness, how do these people dare to live in the United States? This is their poster, I guess, the People's Sick Day. All right. According to the group's mission statement, they plan to institute a so-called economic blackout. Its members would either call out of work sick or take sick day time for 3 days, not spending any money during those 3 days. Oh my goodness. So these are, basically middle class or maybe upper middle class. What do they call them? Anyway, they get their money from their parents. And so they can afford not to spend money for 3 days. No, but go back on your bank account to see how often you went 3 days without spending any money. I bet there aren't that many times, or you go on your credit card account. For myself, I think there's hardly any situation like that. Maybe a weekday, maybe weekend. I don't know. For those unable to take time off from work, they ask that those members do the bare minimum at their jobs, meaning no unpaid overtime and no special favors for their employers. What the organizers see as one of their greatest strengths is that they won't be announcing the dates months in advance. They plan for it to be a sneak attack, with participants only receiving 48 hours notice ahead of the planned 3-day strike. So they're not announcing the dates because they're pretty sure they're not going to be able to pull this off. It's, oh my goodness. There are 902 billionaires. Is that what they said up here? Yeah, okay. There are 902 billionaires in the United States. There are 347 or 370 million Americans here. Number one. So it's us against them. See, communist struggle. Okay. And if you talk about the people who are below the poverty line, that's 60% of us. Really? Let's check. Let's fact check that just a minute here. Okay. I don't think it's 60% below the poverty line. That's pretty outrageous. But who knows? Let's check here. How many Americans are below the poverty line? Okay, real. 11.1%. And that rate is determined by comparing a family's or individual's income to a specific poverty threshold, which varies based on family size and composition. In 2022, the poverty threshold for a family of four now, was $29,678. While the official poverty rate remained relatively stable between 2022 and 2023, there were some shifts within different demographic groups, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So anyway, it is worth noting that the supplemental poverty measure, which includes factors like government benefits and taxes, showed a slightly higher poverty rate of 12.9% in 2023 and an increase in child poverty under this measure. Okay, so even if you give them the benefit of the doubt, take the higher of the two figures, it's still 12.9%. So they're exaggerating or just plain lying. Okay. So over 200 million of us against less than a quarter of that, right? So again, trying to foment Marxist-Leninist struggle there in the United States. And these people are just in their fantasy bubble. We'll have to watch and see how well they're going to do. But I think it's highly unlikely that they're going to get anywhere. But these kinds of things are going on. So here's what they're going to do. The following is a complete list of their demands. Calling for the impeachment, removal, and arrest of Donald John Trump. And there's more. The Republican administration for knowingly manipulating the U.S. stock market, ignoring the U.S. Constitution, trafficking humans, and destroying our federal workforce. He is a criminal. Lock him up. Okay. Demanding hands-off Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, SNAP, and veterans benefits. Of course, if nothing is done on Social Security, the benefits are going to go down by themselves in about 10 years or so. Demanding the removal of caps on Social Security, demanding no more tax breaks for the rich, tax them all, demanding an end to unlimited corporate profits and economic injustice, demanding an end to lobbyist and super PAC funding, Okay, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Elimination of the Electoral College and a ban on gerrymandering, and demanding ranked choice voting in all federal and state elections, taxation of mega churches, free post-secondary education. So they want to go to college for free. Okay. All right, so good luck with that. I guess we can go ahead and wish them luck. Nothing much is going to happen with these guys. But it's interesting. We have these sort of fantasies. And then MSN actually publishes their opinion piece on their news portal, which I think says a lot about MSN. Okay. All right, let's go through some of the stories on the Newsmax. Let's see, Wall Street Journal reporter has been banned from, well, he's been taken off the pool that's going to Scotland with President Trump. Okay. And okay to end protections for Afghans and Cameroonians. The Afghans one, I'm a little bit concerned because I think this includes interpreters and others who worked with the U.S. military during that 20-year war, and now they're being sent back to Afghanistan, which is under the control of the very people that we were fighting against. So I just wonder, this, yeah, I'm not so comfortable with that. Planned Parenthood has partial win in funding fight. Okay, I'm sure that fight will go on. And let's see, the administration released FBI records on the Martin Luther King Jr. Situation because the FBI was basically following or monitoring, surveilling Martin Luther King Jr., which had surveilled the civil rights leader, and he was killed. He was assassinated on April 4th, 1968, as he increasingly extended his attention from a nonviolent campaign for equal rights for African Americans to economic issues and calls for peace. His death shook the United States in a year that would also bring race riots, anti-Vietnam War demonstrations, and the assassination of presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy. Yeah, 1968 was a tough year. I was not here. I was in Japan, attending high school in Japan in 68. But yeah, that was, I remember the assassination of Dr. King very, very vividly, as I do Robert F. Kennedy. Kennedy was assassinated just after he won the California primary. Anyway, so so forth and so anyway, more transparency, if that is what is happening, I think is a good thing, and that is certainly in line with the spirit of the Tony Constitution. So I think it's a good thing that these things are being released. I don't know what's in them. I don't know if it's a selective release or an actual full release, but I can be hearing about that more as we go along. EU is poised to battle the US on tariffs. And let's see here. Pentagon withdraws 700 Marines from Los Angeles. All right. And Trump says no more federal funds for Harvard. I think, this is a pretty good populist move by Trump, because we know that Harvard has an endowment of tens of billions of dollars. And I think it's a fair question. Why should my tax dollars be going to Harvard when they've got such a huge endowment fund? Why aren't they spending their own money? Right? Harvard has a $52 billion sitting in the bank. This is President Trump, right? I don't know if it's actually sitting in the bank. I think it's invested in various places. But anyway, yeah, they have a fund of $52 billion. And yet they are anti-Semitic, anti-Christian, and anti-American, Trump wrote. Much of this money comes from the USA, all to the detriment of other schools, colleges, and institutions, referring to the government grants. And we are not going to allow this unfair situation to happen any longer. Yeah. And the $52 billion endowment fund is the nation's highest for an academic institution, according to Forbes. And Harvard may make some, excuses or explanations and all that, but still, they've got $52 billion, right? I mean, come on. And what are they going to lose here? They're going to lose 2 points. Right now they've lost $2.6 billion, which is what? What's that? Is that 5% of 52 billion? Yeah, that's about 5% of 52 billion. Okay. So why are they crying over, why are we paying this 2.6 billion in the first place? And there may be some logical reasons, but as a populist move, I think it's very good because no one's going to understand this, even if Harvard explains it. Okay. So I don't know how the court case is going to come out, but in terms of politics, it's a good move. Let's just check again. I don't want to be checking this every day, but the presidential tracking poll still 50%. Okay. And so anyway, he recovered from 47. He's back up to 50. And here, strongly disapprove has come down quite a bit in the last few days. And strongly approve is basically steady at 34. So his index rating now is down to -4. All right, well, good. That's all good. Okay. All right, let's see here. And yeah, we did this yesterday, right? US deploys nukes to UK amid escalating tensions. Yeah, we did that. Okay. Okay, they want to keep cutting. All right. Okay. Taibbi says Obama linked to Russia hoax is significant. And, I think Obama may be called before Congress to testify. And the embarrassment of having to do that may be one of the ways in which he is held accountable. I'm sure the Republican members of Congress will grill him. But I don't know if he's actually going to go to jail. All right, let's see here. Okay, and then Philippines to talk tariffs in China at the White House. Okay, and see where Stephen Colbert was canceled, where his program has been canceled, and CBS says it has nothing to do with any politics. All right, nothing that Colbert said. It's just that it's losing money, tens of millions of dollars a year, and they can't afford to continue to subsidize him anymore. That's what they say. And I'm sure they're telling the truth. They never lie, do they? Mm-hmm. All right, let's see here. Mamdani leaves New York business leaders divided. Okay. That's what communists like to do, right? They like to divide. Yeah. All right, we got a couple minutes. Let's go ahead and look at this. The business community in New York City is scrambling to figure out who to support in November's mayoral race, with many leaders saying either Andrew Cuomo or Mayor Eric Adams needs to drop out for the other to have a chance against a surprise Democratic primary winner, Zoran Mamdani. Following Cuomo's announcement that he would stay in the race as an independent after losing to Mamdani, New York-based CEOs have yet to coalesce behind either the former governor or incumbent Adams in their bid to defeat Mamdani, a Democratic socialist who won the primary in June. Come on, he's a communist Muslim, is what he is, communist Muslim. And which is interesting because generally communists and Muslims don't get along, but he's managed to do it. Several business leaders who would only speak under the condition of anonymity say they would support Cuomo, while others were backing Adams, a former police captain who was elected mayor as a Democrat in 2021, but this year decided to run as an independent, as less sure of the former governor's chances. Many leaders are taking a wait-and-see approach, though others believe that could be a bad move, keeping another candidate from gaining momentum. Mamdani won the 2024 primary with 56% of the vote, bolstered by young voters drawn to his social media presence and messaging focused on solving the city's affordability crisis. Polling suggests he would prevail over a fractured field of Cuomo, Adams, and Republican candidate Curtis Sliwa, but some polls suggest Cuomo would win a head-to-head matchup against Mamdani in heavily Democrat-controlled New York. Business owners are concerned Mamdani's proposals, which include rent freezes, right? No price controls never work. Free city buses, okay, that's money that's going to come from somewhere, unless they found a way to get free gas and drivers who agree to drive for free and maintenance workers who agree to work for free, then they're going to have to get the money from somewhere. And city-owned grocery stores. City-owned grocery stores. So that's government price fixing of groceries. I think. Are they going to charge market prices? Why have a city-owned grocery store if you're going to charge just market prices? Would add to residents' tax burden and cause an exodus of capital. Exodus of capital, yes. But remember what President Trump has said. He said that he will take over New York City by force if necessary. I don't know if he can actually do that. I mean, President Trump sometimes says stuff that he actually cannot do, like deporting some people who are critical of him, U.S. citizens, U.S. native-born U.S. citizens, which obviously he cannot deport those people. And maybe he says it. Maybe he's just saying it for effect. I'm sure he must know this. But anyway, he says he's going to take over New York City. Washington, D.C., he also said that about that. Now, Washington, D.C. does, I think, have the power, or at least Congress does. Congress has the power to take over Washington, D.C. All right, let's see here. Architect of conservative movement passes, right? Let's see here. Let's go. All right, let's see here. U.S. to leave UNESCO again. All right, yes. I think was it President Trump that took us out of UNESCO last time during his first term, and then Biden brought us back, and so forth and so on. Yeah, Trump took similar steps during his first term, quitting the World Health Organization, the Human Rights Council, and the Iran nuclear deal during the first term. Okay, and Biden reversed those decisions after taking office in 2021. And with Trump now back in the White House, the U.S. is once again pulling out of these global bodies. He has already decided to withdraw the U.S. from WHO and halt funding to the Palestinian Relief Agency as part of a review of the U.S. participation in U.S. agencies due to be concluded in August. UNESCO is best known for designing World Heritage sites, including the Grand Canyon in the United States and the ancient city of Palmyra in Syria. Okay. Yeah, but and U.S. currently provides about 8% of UNESCO's total budget, down from about 20% at the time Trump first pulled the United States out of the agency. And this is a Reuters story. Reuters story. So do we have time? We don't. Okay, well, I have to do this another time, but I'm curious. WhiteHouse.gov. Let's go here. Let's see. Let's do a search on them. Let's do a search on UNESCO. Withdrawing the United States. Yeah, this is it. This is February 4th, though, right? Okay. This is what, 2025, right? Is that the only UNESCO thing we have? Okay. That doesn't really, it only says that we're going to review, this was back in February, so we're going to review this UNESCO situation. It doesn't really say, why, what was the result of the review and why the withdrawal. I suspect that's because of the way that the money is being spent, but I'd like to see the specifics on that. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, if there's some time, we'll get into that. Okay. All right, let's see. Yeah, we're about out of time here. Right, and I think I'm looking at the Breitbart right now, but I don't see anything that's really earth-shattering at the moment. Yeah, okay, so it's time to go. All right, so thank you, and I'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow's Wednesday, so we will continue with our study of blood lineage based on Two Fathers' 3 speeches that he gave in January 1973 to a group of mostly European members who had come to the United States and were going through training at the Belvedere Center in New York State. All right, I'll see you tomorrow. God bless, Godspeed. May his kingdom come quickly.